Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for coming today. We're going to start the eulogies at this time. First up is Mrs. JoAnn Milani. She wanted to say some words about my mom, and I happily accepted. So we're going to start. I'm going to get the microphone over to her.
Testing.
Pretty good.
Okay. This is about Diane von Dresky. Arlene Gould and I, my friend over here, and I worked on this eulogy together and came up with the following descriptions of our friend Diane. She was definitely a troubleshooter, a take-charge person, a community supporter, particularly in the arts, and helped those in need when she found them. I remembered her taking in a friend called Jack, and he was her gardener for a while, and she helped him through many things. He was also dyslexic and had other kinds of problems, and she always helped him. I first met Diane through the Rock Island Art Guild, for which she was president during the Guild's unfortunate disagreement with Augustana over not continuing to support our biannual art exhibit as they had done for many years. She was in control during this period and guided the Guild's transfer to the Figge Art Museum in Davenport, which they are now successfully doing. We also met for dinner once a week at our house, with each guest bringing a side dish. As soon as Diane arrived, she took over the kitchen, finished each course, and of course, her mandatory warming of the plates. She was like a sergeant. In the end, everyone agreed we needed her badly, as her organizational skills helped things run smoothly. Her generosity for taking care of others' needs was always there. She supported one gentleman for many, and that was Jack. I just found out his name. With managing his health care needs when he was unable to do this on his own. She recently helped our friend Lori, who was a German citizen, when her memory failed for how to get, turn the page, her money out of her own accounts. And Lori told me how grateful she was for Diane's help and that she wouldn't ever forget it. In addition to that, Diane introduced Lori to a couple of her German friends so that she could make some acquaintances. Diane talked about her many experiences at AT&T, her trips to Germany, and her many sailing experiences. While at AT&T, she donned boots and went in the snow to a specific pole where she solved a problem by yelling instructions to the lineman. She could also be very self-confident. One incident in particular was the COVID vaccine, which she refused to take. She didn't relent, even though she had a severe case bout with the COVID and hospitalization for many days. As new information shows, she wasn't all wrong. Sorry about turning these pages. Okay. She spent many Thanksgivings at our home, very long table filled with many friends. She had a real knack for arranging place cards to make good personality matches. When Diane and Arlene went to dinner together, they experimented with new cocktails, include Johnny Walker Green, and they always talked, drank, and ate until the restaurant closed. One of the many things she truly enjoyed was this Lake Davenport Sailing Club. She spent many happy hours here making friends and enjoying sailing. But of course, her biggest love of all these years was her son Paul and now Ellie, with whom she enjoyed a recent trip to Mexico. That's it.
All right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Milani. Those were beautiful words about my mother. I know we're almost going to say some of the same things. My mom loved you and your family very much, and I really appreciate you doing that today. I'd like to thank everyone for coming today and sharing the love and memories of my mother, Diane. I must admit that I haven't been looking forward to today. It's been 3 months since my mom left this earth, and today counts as the official and final goodbye to her. I'd love nothing more than to unburden myself with this responsibility today. But my whole career is based on communication. I speak in front of groups all the time, so public speaking is my life. The other problem is that no one knew Diane better than me, so that obviously makes me the #1 draft pick. Now, I must admit that calling my mom Diane is very strange to me. I only did it when she was in big trouble, you know? Diane von Dresky, do not use that tone of voice with me. Or, Diane von Dresky, you sit your butt down right now. And that's exactly how it would have sounded had I ever talked back to my mom. I want this to be perfect, but I already know perfection is unattainable by us mere mortals. But it's my mother I'm talking about, and I hold myself to an impossible standard. After all, I am here to convey honor for my mother, Diane. And let's be honest, the honor is already there. That is why we are already here today. That is why we all hurt. And for me, the stakes have never been higher. And at the same time, the pain has never been greater. I know everyone here feels some sort of loss of my mother, Diane. However, my mom told me that she did not want people to be sad if I chose to do any type of farewell ceremony or visitation. So going forward, let us smile, laugh, and remember the good times. The only tears will be tears of joy, and maybe I'm trying to convince myself of this more than any of you. However, I know she's all looking down on all of us today with the greatest joy in her heart. So Diane was born all the way back in 1940. She remembered saving cans, tin, gum, wrappers for the war effort, and that's World War II, not the Civil War, for the young folks out there. She graduated from Davenport High School, class of 1958. She did want to go to college, but only got partway before she had to leave. She started work at the phone company as a switchboard operator. Now, if you don't know what that is, back in the day we had landlines or home phones. You would pick up the phone, you'd hear a voice, "Operator, how may I direct your call?" "Hello, I'd like to speak with John Smith, please." "What is his phone number, please?" "It's 8. "Hold, please." And they would take the cable with the metal tip, and it looked like one of those big Connect 4 boards when I was a kid, and they plug it in the hole and literally connect the call. Now, this was typically considered a woman's job back then. Remember, this was a different time. Diane worked hard and moved up in the phone company, Illinois Bell. She eventually became an outside engineer, even without the proper education. Now, this was a man's job. It was not meant for a woman. I know this because Diane was the first female engineer in the Illinois Bell. She told me that one man even took early retirement rather than work with a woman. And I had to ask her, "Are you sure it wasn't just because it was you?" And she would snap back, "No, it was because he didn't want to work with any woman." Okay, just making sure. She continued this job for quite a few years, traveling around the state. She empathized with me many times as I have spent my career traveling as well. Eventually, she decided to have me. She left the road behind and raised me as a stay-at-home mom for the first 11 years of her life. She felt it was important to be home to raise me. I thank her for that foresight. Later, she returned to the phone company where she retired around 2000 or so. In her personal life, Diane loved people. She could talk to anyone no matter who they were, what their background. She cared about people on a deeper level than most. She had different social circles with different people and interests. She was always extremely interested in people with different cultures and backgrounds. Diane had a childlike curiosity of the people and places that were around her, and the people who could appreciate her. They loved her immensely. She had many different friends with different backgrounds, cultures, and ages even. I remember a few months back, She had told me she was invited to lunch by a kid that was only 16 years old, and he was buying. I told her, okay, but if you see Chris Hansen and a bunch of television cameras around, turn around and don't say a word. She's like, who's Chris Hansen? Don't worry, Mom, just call me and I'll get in touch with my lawyer. It'll all work out. But that was part of Diane's magic. The whole time I knew her, almost all the way until the end, when she couldn't anymore, she took care of someone. And I didn't mean she just did a couple things for them every once in a while. She assisted them in being able to live their lives way more than most people would even do for their most close family members. And these people weren't family in the blood sense. Truthfully, she had no obligation to them whatsoever. Regardless, she helped them live with dignity and helped them live as normal lives as possible. In addition to these people, there were others along the way that she helped in addition to those, just in smaller ways. She was always in service to others. Her life and her heart were dedicated to people. Some of those people didn't even know how much they were struggling or were too proud to admit it. Diane would tell you, sometimes kicking and screaming, but she would grab your hand and lead the way out. Diane was very headstrong and could be a tad bit stubborn at times. Anybody ever bump heads with my mom? Chris, you should have both your hands up. Exactly. And I'll tell you, I spoke to my mom almost every single day for the past 10 years or so, and I always knew what she was up to. So I heard everything. Now, you may call me biased, as I am her son, but I'll also say my mom was almost always right in everything she said or did. I'd tell her that too, but I also say I probably would have handled it a little bit differently. But here's the thing. We are conditioned to be right versus wrong, good versus bad, yin yang, red, blue. You get the idea. But the thing I've rarely seen in this world is black and white. There are so many colors in between. And even one of those rare instances where something in life looks like it's truly black and white, it still has midnight black, jet black, onyx, pearl, cream, off-white, beige, you get it. I can tell you, no matter if you agreed with her or not, her heart was 1,000% in the right place every time. A couple weeks before she died, Diane stopped contributing to the Child Fund organization. She had been sponsoring a child for 48 years. 48 years. I said, Mom, why are you stopping now? 2 more years, they'll probably give you a plaque or a $10 Starbucks gift card or something. But unbeknownst to me, my mom knew her time was short. A couple months later, she was sent a letter from her sponsored child, Gabriel, in Brazil. It was a letter she never saw. Understand that after you give a special donation outside the dorm, they have the child write the sponsor a letter. And I opened it. Little Gabriel was thanking my mom for the gift and telling her a little about what he's up to. Said that his family, especially his mother, is sad because his grandma had just died. After reading this letter, I called up Child Fund. I told them I'd like to sponsor a child. Now, when you call this organization, I will tell you they're always super friendly and appreciative over the phone. Seriously, the nicest people I've ever talked to on the phone. I'll tell you, I tell the representative, look, I already sponsor one child, but I'd like to add another one. I remember he was excited and very gracious. And I said, well, don't thank me just yet. There's only one child on this planet that I want to add to my account. That made him shut up. I proceeded to tell him the story in the child's name. And guess what? They made it happen. So now I'll finish out Gabriel's sponsorship in honor of my mother, Diane von Dresky. Diane had many different interests. She loved meeting up and playing cards with her friends, spades, bridge, euchre, and others. When I was going through things at my mom's house, I got to her car. On the back of her seat, on a hanger, was a little bag in it. Were cards, deck of cards, paper pad, pencil, rule sheets, all ready to go for the next game. The next game that she wasn't going to make. And unfortunately, there was an empty seat at that table that day. And Diane loved art, especially local art and artists. She was president of the Art Guild and worked with and supported the Figge Art Museum. She went to the Quad City Symphony for many, many years, always had her season tickets, and supported both organizations' growth and diversity. And she loved the Quad Cities area. When Longview Pool closed, some people wanted to build a water park, but they didn't want to build it at Longview Park. They wanted all the way out in Andalusia. Now, I had been a lifeguard at Longview for 4 years. That pool was a very important part of the community. Many underprivileged kids came to that pool, and I knew that when they were at that pool, they weren't out on the street. They were out on the streets. They weren't in broken homes. They weren't getting into trouble. She rallied the community. She organized donations and grants. She made them build a water park right there in Longview Park. A couple months ago, one of her friends told me how she had galvanized everyone to get on board and fight for Longview. Her friend told me that that water park wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Diane. And I know that's 100% true. It would not have been there if it weren't for Diane's grit, determination, and a tad bit of stubbornness to save the park, its experiences, its culture, and its history. Finally, Diane always enjoyed travel. She traveled to many places in her life, Spain, Germany several times, which led me to get to know a couple of my German relatives who I still speak to today. And a few other countries, I couldn't remember them all. She did many sailing trips, including Italy a couple times, Greece a couple times, Turkey a couple times. I did a few trips with her as well. When I was younger, she took me to Walt Disney World when I was 8. Now, she paid for this trip by clipping coupons out of the newspaper. Anything she saved from the coupons, she put the difference in a travel fund. This was supposed to teach me a valuable lesson about money. That was a little too deep of a concept for me at the time. I just wanted to see Mickey Mouse. But she made it happen even when we had so little and fulfilled her child's dream. In 2004, we went to New Zealand. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little family secret here. Didn't know this was going to get juicy here today, did you? We had drifted a little bit apart after my dad had died. Now, nothing horrible, but everyone understands the ups and downs with family members, friends, significant others. And we were probably more down and up at this time. It was October 2004, and we spent about 3 weeks there. And the way it works when you do these trips, you'd come into Auckland top and you rent a car and you would travel all the way around the island, and there's only one street in, out, that type of thing. Now, these cars are not the best cars. They're from like Asia. We've never seen them over here. They're like 15, 20 years old at the time. Our car had to have been the worst, had about 25 horsepower to it. And we're going through the mountains. It's a treacherous trip when you go through these mountains. It's literally 2 lanes right down, and you see cars down there. Now remember, I said 25 horsepower, I wasn't kidding. And probably up in the mountains they had 20 because some of those horses were out of breath. So I would have to step on the gas, and it would be going 5, 10, and all of a sudden it would jerk, and then start going, 20, 25 top speed. This was driving my mom crazy, and she thought I was doing it on purpose. It was the only time I had a blow up at my mom at that trip because she was getting nervous, and I said, "Sit down and shut up, Miss Daisy. I'm trying to drive." I mean, I was white knuckling this car at this point. However, that trip I think healed some wounds for us both, and it really brought us very close together. Stop, Mom. And that closeness never wavered all the way until now. Since that time, she was and is my best friend. In 2007, she brought me on one of her sailing trips. We went from Turkey to Greece, back to Turkey. And I mean a real sailboat. We crewed it ourselves. She shared her love of sailing with me, and I remember being on the Mediterranean and thinking of the Greeks, the Romans, and all the other people in history that had sailed the same waters I was on now. Going to islands you could only get to by boat that very few people will ever see in their lifetime. When we went to Rhodes, where the Colossus once stood, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, visited the fortress that had been around 4,000 years. It was a magical trip that meant the world to me. If my mom could have traveled and sailed her whole life, she would have. And I wish I could have made that possible for her. However, she did get some great trips and experiences under her belt, and I will always be grateful that we got to go on the trips we did. So I do have to share 2 unfortunate truths today about Diane, but I feel this is important as it helped shape Diane into the woman she was. The first as many did not approve of her choices in the past. My mom didn't really stay in her lane, if you know what I mean. And the second, she had me because she felt it was the only way for her life to mean something on this planet, to have a legacy. No pressure, Mom. Let me be clear, it was a different time, and it's long been water under the bridge. However, I feel these things really shaped her perspective on life and made her the determined person that she was. As far as myself, she was a single mother. She had told me numerous times that she knew it would be difficult. She even worried that I might grow up resenting her, on drugs or in jail, you name it. However, when you have a mother like Diane guiding and raising you, that would never happen. That's why I don't like doing speeches. When you are fortunate enough to have Diane von Dresky as your mother, you are given an incredible moral compass to always do the right thing. If you make a mistake, admit it, correct it, apologize if needed. If a mountain lies in your path, you begin with the first step and never stop, always moving forward. My mom lamented not giving me more opportunities in life, especially growing up. But she gave me all I ever needed. She gave me the tools I needed to succeed. The knowledge, the experience, the willpower, and the determination. My wife would probably add stubbornness, but we can all agree to disagree on that one. And when it came to major events in my life, I did the right things. Now, doing the right thing is very costly sometimes, and I'm not just talking about money. It's much easier to not do the right thing in many instances. Without my mother's teachings, love, and guidance, I would have never been able to stand up for myself like I did and prevail through some momentous challenges. Now, some may be wondering how she did it. And since you all are here today, you know how Diane operated. Whatever task Diane had, whatever challenges she faced, Diane saw it through to completion. When she didn't know how to do something, that never stopped her. She was YouTube before YouTube. She would watch or ask someone who did know. Then she'd roll up her sleeves and dig right in. And it wouldn't take her very long to look like it was something she had been doing her whole life. We're all here at the sailing club today. Several people told me that she was the best timekeeper ever. Never made a mistake, and everything was meticulous while she was working races. We all know Diane could have done timekeeping at the Olympics. She was so good. I was having a conversation a few weeks back with someone who was a very dear friend to her. She told me that she was surprised that Diane was into sailing, and it got me thinking more about my mother and her life. She had many different groups of people that she knew and would associate with. And as I said, Diane could talk with anyone about anything at any time. She was not bound by societal norms and peer pressure. She very much cared about her fellow human beings. So when she met someone different, unique, whatever, she asked questions and learned from them. If they were doing something different or foreign to her, she would join in if possible. Never afraid to try something and fail. There's a quote attributed to Thomas Edison. Someone asked him if he ever felt like giving up creating the light bulb as he failed 100 times. His reply was, "I didn't fail. I just found 100 ways that it wouldn't work first." And that was my mother. Never afraid to try, possibly look like a fool, or make an excuse why she could not do something. It was never in her playbook. It seemed that Diane pretty much knew everything, didn't she? If you asked her how to do something, she openly shared that knowledge with you and would teach. Her knowledge was vast due to her many different life experiences. Sometimes it seemed like she knew of or how to do anything, didn't she? They don't make them like her anymore. I know we all share in this great loss. And at this time, I'd like to thank some people for all their help and support. I'd like to thank Diane's brother Dick and his wife Mary. Where are you guys at? Mary, Dick, over there. I had a blowout 20 minutes from the QC when I was trying to make it to Iowa City, and he came all the way from Iowa City and got me the rental place to replace my car. They also spent every day in the hospital with my mother so she didn't die alone. I really didn't want to watch my mother die and have that memory burned in my brain. So I thank you both from the bottom of my heart for what you did for her. I'd also like to thank Chris Brown. Where are you at, Chris, over there? Yep. She answered the Life Alert call and got my mom to Iowa City. She and her family have always been family ever since we moved into the house on Lincoln Court back in 1990. After my mom died, she came over every day to water the plants and take care of little girl. No small task, because my mom had quite the plant collection. Okay, Mom, you're going down. And the garden that she loved to attend to. And little girl was my mom's feral cat that she had fed for and cared for 15 years. The only person who could touch her was my mother. My mother and little girl had an unshakable bond, spent countless hours with one another over the years. Chris honored and loved my mother by doing all the extra work. And by God, Chris, I know you have a plate full of your own things these days, so I can't thank you enough. I love you very much, Chris. I'd also like to thank Bonnie Teedy and Linda Allbach and the rest of the Lake Davenport Sailing Club for allowing me to host the celebration here today. They offered it right away and at no charge as well, just out of respect for my mom. I mean, it's great to be in no charge and all, but this is the best location I could have had. Perfect, and it's even cloudy for me, just enough today. Thank you, Mom. My mom loved this place and being on the water, so there couldn't have been a better place in the Quad Cities. Thank you so much to the entire club. Also, everyone else who reached out to me to support, and all those that came out today to honor my mother, Diane von Dresky. I've been gone for 25 years. Some of you I've kept up with. Some of you I knew from my younger years, and some of you I don't know at all. But none of you are strangers here to me today. Like I said earlier, I always spoke to my mom, so if we had had enough time together, I would know exactly who you all were and when you were with my mother. Everyone I spoke to, your love, respect, and friendship of my mother was passed to me and from me back to you. My loving thanks to everyone here and to those who loved my mom. So before I end today, I'd like to share a story. Now, it's a story about the supernatural. And if you don't believe in that sort of thing, I respect that. If you're open to the possibility or a believer, that's great. But regardless of your personal beliefs, I swear by my Lord above and by the mother of his side, this is true. So this had happened the night my mom passed. Her brother Dick had called me around 9 and told me she was gone. I was absolutely broken that night. We were standing in the kitchen and I was crying uncontrollably. My body shaking and convulsing like I'm having a seizure, practically hyperventilating. Tears flowing like broken pipes from both my eyes. Ugly crying, and it's even worse when you see a grown man this way. So I've been crying for maybe 20 minutes or so, stop and go. My wife was in the room with me. She didn't know how to comfort me after a point. What can you do? And I'm crying my eyes out when the house suddenly goes pitch black. All the lights went out. About 3 seconds later, they come back on. I was frozen. All convulsing stopped. I could have been a statue if it wasn't for the fact that tears were still flowing down my face like a waterfall. My wife came from around the refrigerator to standing right in front of me. This confused and bewildered look on her face. We look at each other and she says, "Oh, sorry, I saw a little girl out there and I turned on the light, but I accidentally turned off the lights. Then I couldn't see to get the lights back on. I'm so sorry." I immediately start convulsing again, and in a crying voice that was mostly not comprehensible. I'm like, "My mom just died, and I thought that was her. Why'd you do that to me?" And that is exactly how it happened that night. Isn't it, Ellie? Don't worry, I'm not mad at her. I told you this was a true story. So no, I didn't feel her presence that night. It was just my mom's cat and a wrong light switch. I wish it was my mother, though. I miss her every day. And although this death was sudden, she went out of the way she wanted to, more or less. When I got to her home that Sunday, after the stroke, I got to see how she was living. Every other time I came home, she knew I was coming. She was prepared. Fran knows. But this time I got to see the truth. Life was very much getting harder for her. I knew that it was, but I had no idea to the extent it was difficult for her, as she kept that from me. She knew how hard and time-consuming it was to take care of someone, and she didn't want me to have to do that. I saw the things she was doing. She was wrapping up her affairs. It was harder for her to do things in her house. As beautiful as it was becoming more of a prison. Her biggest source for information was the television. And let's be honest, these days the television is poison. All it does is remind us of our differences and why we should fear and hate those differences. To quote Shakespeare in The Merchant of Venice, "If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh?" The world these days was weighing heavily on my mother. It is the exact opposite of how my mom believed and wanted to live. I think she decided she was done. She didn't want to move to Texas. She didn't want to leave her beautiful house. It was her magnum opus in her eyes. If you had ever seen her house, you understand. She had restored it with her own blood, sweat, and tears over the past 30 years. I knew she didn't want to move. She loved her house. Ugh. She loved this area, and she loved the people here. I tried to convince her, but she would never budge. She lived the way she wanted, and she died pretty much the way she wanted as well. She was active all the way to the end. We're just going to do the best I can. And she loved being outside in the garden, socializing, and being out and about. We can all take solace in the fact that she lived the way she wanted all the way to the end. As I stated earlier, my mother was very rarely wrong in my opinion, but there were some instances. She felt I was her legacy on this planet. She did not think many would come to a service today if I chose to have one. I have followed my mother's wishes down to the letter, but there is some things I'm struggling with. Now, she did buy her plot, and it's a family plot. It will have a marker. I won't get into some of the smaller details, but I don't agree with a couple of her wishes, and it's the only thing I struggle with to fulfill. Although she was smart and beat me to the punch, because I'll tell you what I'd want to do, and my mother probably saved my marriage from divorce because I would want to go big. This is what would happen. I'd commission a sculpture of Diane to be built. It would be life-size, like a Roman Greek goddess with a toga flowing and a olive crown wreath. I'd hand some papers to my wife and I'd tell her, please sign the first one. And I can't do my wife's accent, but she'd say, $500,000 second mortgage. What is this? I'd say, yeah, please sign at the bottom. I need a co-signer. I'd say, yeah, I have this great sculptor I've commissioned, and he'll have her arm outstretched, just like this, reaching the sky, and a dove would be landing on her outstretched hand. Third mortgage. I'd say, yeah, the bank made me get another one. And then there would be this deer behind her looking up to her. And the sculptor would also put little girl next to her at no charge. What's this? City of Davenport permit application? Yeah, sign date and initial at the stickers, please. I need to come up with a great saying or phrase at the bottom, but I don't know yet, and we have 2 years until completion. So plenty of time to think about what we want to say. But fortunately for me, and most likely my marriage, my mom pre-planned everything. And she wants her marker to be practically anonymous. And I struggle on that one, but I am my mother's son. The apple didn't fall too far from the tree. She often said that on her tombstone I could put everything she touched, she left it better than she found it, which I wholeheartedly agree with. And I think most people would agree as well. She said it enough times that I believe it counts as a verbal contract if my legal understanding is where it should be. She did make everything she touched better. But she also didn't say I couldn't put a symbol on there. And that symbol is going to be a QR code. Now, I don't think QR codes will be around in 5-10 years, but they'll most likely be readable for quite a bit of time. That's why these eulogies were being recorded today. Because truthfully, I have no interest or intention to relive this by watching this ever again. But I do hope that in the future, and maybe a future relative, or someone in a class project, or someone just walking by, will see this weird symbol and maybe take some time to watch and listen. And they will know the legacy that Diane von Dresky left behind in her wake. Regardless, her body will not be there. I have had her cremated in accordance to her wishes. She asked me several times if I could spread them in the water, preferably the ocean. She even mentioned Galveston Bay since I live close to there. And after a couple times she said this, I had to give her one of my answers. I said, no problem, Mom. I promise you'll have a beautiful ceremony. We will share our memories of you, our love of you, and say a prayer for you. She said, that sounds lovely, Paul. Thank you. I thought so too, Mom. And then we would flush. But don't worry, Mom, we'll use the downstairs bathroom, the nice one. Your ashes will go to the treatment plant, into the Mississippi River, down to the Louisiana Delta, and off to the Gulf of Mexico where your dream will come true. Circle of life, Mom, like Elton John and the Lion King. You know, the first one, the good one. So whenever I said something like that, my mom would say, "Gee, Paul, thanks a lot. I'm glad you mean so much to me." I said, "Mom, come on, I love you." I was kidding. Besides, I was advised to use the kitchen sink with a garbage disposal to make sure the ashes are cut very fine. My friend, who's a urologist, thinks that maybe 5 or 10% will eventually make it to the Gulf of Mexico. Now, we did have a few drinks before we came up with this, but Hakuna Matata, Mom, it means no worries. We're not Catholic, but seriously, if anybody knows the Pope, she deserves sainthood, doesn't she? But in all seriousness, I do have a great plan that I think she'll approve. You see, my wife and I got married in late 2019, and we were supposed to go to Italy in 2020, but the world had different plans. So I figured this would be a great time to have our honeymoon. Now, normally I would not advise you to bring your mother or your wife's mother-in-law on a honeymoon, but I don't think she'll mind on this. We will go out to the Mediterranean and spread my mother's ashes in accordance to her wishes. The same body of water where I sailed with my mom 16 years ago. We will make her one with the body of water and the planet that she so loved. Now, I had told you earlier that I didn't feel my mom's presence that night she died, as much as I wish I had. The weekend before she died, I was at her house. I could hear the kids playing at Longview at the water park. It was opening weekend, Memorial Day, but it was extra hot. I mean, obviously this year, whew. So it was packed opening weekend. When I heard those kids that day and in the future, I think about all the fun and memories being made there that summer. I will feel her presence. When I think about all the people she helped and served and am able to help and serve someone just like she did, I will feel her presence. When I'm able to overcome a great challenge using her guidance and teachings, I will feel her presence. And when a woman or minority breaks the glass ceiling and people celebrate that person for their success, I will remember my mom being one of the first unsung heroes who began the process of breaking down the barriers with no fanfare, and I will feel her presence. We as a society have a problem with hero worship. We worship celebrities, politicians, athletes who dunk a ball, hit a home run, or score a touchdown. We worship the rich and powerful because they donate some money to a worthy cause. Well, I hate to say this, but I find it's true when they say, don't meet your heroes. I find very few of those aforementioned people are really heroes in any way, shape, or form. They are often extremely flawed human beings, but aren't we all? Because in my humble opinion, most of the heroes in this world are the unsung. The unknown heroes who are just doing their job, or just doing what they thought was right. They never are celebrated or have any fanfare. They are the ones who I truly feel deserve the hero title. My mother, Diane von Dresky, was a trailblazer who lived her life her own way and lived to serve others. The world would be a much better place if we all had a little bit more Diane in us. Diane von Dresky is and will always be my hero. I thank you all for coming today. May God bless you all, and may God bless Diane von Dresky. Thank you.